I believe that the best way to handle those in our society convicted of first-degree murder is to sentence them to life in prison without parole. I believe this because this is more cost-effective, and I believe our justice system is here to punish people for crimes they commit. And the worst punishment one could receive is life in prison without parole. Originally, I was for the death sentence. However, after reading articles about life in prison and the death sentence, I believe that it is worse for criminals to live out the remainder of their life in prison. And I believe that for criminals convicted of first-degree murder, we need to punish them in the most harsh way. I believe that I can prove my ideas with data and facts from reliable sources like ABC News, Frontline News, and the Marshall Project, which is a nonprofit organization that gathers information on the American criminal justice system. From these sources, I have gathered facts that show why life in prison is worse to prisoners and, secondly, more cost-effective. We need to punish criminals convicted of first-degree murder in the harshest way we can. Life in prison is seen as worse by these criminals, and here are the facts that back this statement. Marco Torres Jr., convicted of a double murder while covering up a robbery, now an inmate on death row in Nebraska, stated that life in prison is worse than death, because every day I don't know if tomorrow will be my last. From 1993 to 2002, 75 inmates requested their death. And in the past 10 years, more death penalty sentences have been voluntary than not. This shows that the criminals convicted of first-degree murder would rather take the easy way out and be sentenced to death than live out the rest of their life behind bars. Secondly, most people are under the impression that death sentences are cheaper. However, data shows that this is not true. It costs more for taxpayers to put someone to death than to keep them behind bars for the rest of their lives. This is due to the higher cost of incarceration for inmates on death row due to heightened security, trial appeals that come with costs for attorneys, jury selection, among other things. For instance, in the case of David Pallel, who was executed in 2010 for killing a police officer in Houston in 1978, his case was reversed twice, meaning the city of Austin paid for the trial 3 separate times. The average cost to house an inmate for 1 year is $31,000. A study in California found that on average, after all trials until the execution, death penalty costs on average $2 million per one execution. I interviewed my dad upon the topic of the death penalty or life in prison. He disagrees with me for the following reasons. He believes that the death penalty is a deterrent for future crimes, that to erase the death penalty would make criminals less scared of punishments they could face. On the morality of the subject, we agreed that the criminal should receive the worst punishment he can be given. But he believes the death penalty is the worst punishment anyone could receive, and does not care what happens to the convicted criminal. Whereas I believe that the worst punishment one could receive is incarceration for the remainder of their life. In review, I believe that criminals convicted of first-degree murder deserve the worst punishment they can receive, and I believe that being stuck in prison for the rest of your life would be the worst punishment anyone could receive. As I previously stated, there are facts that show voluntary death of inmates outnumber the other. This proves to me that criminals see the death penalty as the easy way out, and they do not deserve this option.